Mac Heads and Maniacs, what's up? We got one of your favorite guests, OG Cutes, in the building. We're going to talk about gang historians versus gang researchers and gang cops. There's a obvious difference, and there's a good video going around that's kind of rubbing people the wrong way a little bit because European American cops always try to take over our culture and put us down like we some savages. We can be savages, but we're not savages. We're not naturally racist. And that's why a lot of times we get into it with our own people and people think we're preying on black people, but it's just the fact that we look at everybody damn near the same. What's up, Q's?
Hey, how you doing, brother Kev? How you doing, audience? How you doing, Mac Heads? Hope everybody's doing good and feeling healthy tonight.
I'm going to play this song and then we'll get started after the song.
Man, all the OGs chillin' at the party, ain't no blasting. OG Q just chillin' in the back, he got the bad one. Big ol' booty on the teller jokes, he got the laughing. Quickest way to smash and to make the honey smile. See OG Rocket sitting with the lady on the couch. Can hear the oldies playing heavy smoke up in the crib. The kids is seeing playing bone, sipping on some shit. This is crib.
I like the party life, the big city and bright lights, the big girls that's in the skin tight.
Man, I thought that was the other song, Cutes. My apologies.
I like that song. That song was cool.
Yeah, it was a little party, cool atmosphere type song by King Real.
Yeah. King Real chilling.
So, man, you didn't like that video that cop did talking about Tookie was from the hundreds and the West Side became East Side, stuff like that, right?
Yeah, it was so much misinformation. It was coming out, so rapidly. Like he thought he did his homework, and anyone could give themselves a label, but the reality of the situation is that a cop, he's only going to use incriminating evidence when he's dealing with a criminal. He's not going to believe anything the criminal says. That say if I get busted for something and he asks me that I do it, and I say no, man, I didn't do it. I wasn't the one that did it. And then so he's not going to believe that. But if I say, oh, I'm a Crip and I grew up over here in this neighborhood, he's going to write that down. Mm-hmm. He's going to believe that. Anything that's incriminating, he's going to believe. When I'm telling the truth about I didn't do it, he's not going to write that down. He's not going to believe that. He's going to try and put me under the light and pressure me, for many hours to get me to, admit to something that I didn't do. And this usually happens in interrogations with little kids who's not familiar with the judicial system and interrogation tactics. But a lot of people are brought back to court when these certain, unfair tactics are revealed. So here we got a guy. He didn't went and looked at all of the real historians' videos, took bits and pieces, and now he's the historian. First of all, when I was in the joint, and even on the street, the old heads would tell the young heads, you don't be talking to the cops. You don't sit down and talk to the cops. So he said he gathered his information from interviews, and he gathered his information from his family member who arrested people and from his auntie who was a parole officer or a probation officer, and he's trying to say that Raymond Washington didn't have no sense of black pride and no influence at the time from the Black Panther Party. Hugo Pennell, Huey Newton, George Jackson, Jonathan Jackson. We heard of these heroes when we were children. We heard of these heroes when we would be on the back streets, when we would be watching Martin Luther King getting shot down the street with a fire hose. We heard of these heroes and these brave men when we were little kids, and we heard of them in our adolescence as well. And to say that Raymond Washington didn't have any sense of black community is a lie. Then he's going to put Raymond on the side of a known guy from our community who once was a gangbanger, who evolved past gangbanging like we all do when we mature. We all do, you know. And he's going to say that Raymond did not have a sense of that level of blackness when he formed the Crips. Like he's the sole person that started the Crips. He didn't mention none of Raymond's true comrades. He mentions my homeboy Batman. Batman is more along my age. Batman's a frontliner. You know, Batman would be with Raymond up at the long table. Batman would be with me. But you have not interviewed Batman. You have not interviewed me, but you got my picture up there. You know, you act like you interviewed these people and you know these people and you talk to these people. No, what you did is you went and got bits and pieces of information and you trying to make the Crips and the Bloods, you know, demonize us and make it look like we didn't have no black love and we didn't have no sense of blackness, which was a lie. And it's not going to stand because we got our leather coat style from the Black Panthers. We got our style of dress. We were influenced by those strong brothers, the Black Panthers. We didn't have no disdain for the Black Panthers, the Black Panther Party. Fact is, we learned their names. We had their posters in our bedroom with our black lights when we would be chilling in our room, you know, in our den. We have Angela Davis's picture up. We would have a picture of George Jackson up there, a picture of Huey Newton plastered on the wall. Well, we would just have the big black cat, you know, but you don't know these things because you never been in my den. You never been over Tookie's house and been in his living room, but I have. You never been with me and Raymond Washington in Alden's garage, but I have. You never rode down the street with Craig Munson, but I have. So how are you going to paint our history? How are you going to say what we had and what we didn't have? How are you going to try to make us look like we were just some type of predators on our people, which we weren't. We were people who stood up for our community. Other gangs preceded us who already had Bogart in their style of dealing with conflict. So it would be only right for us to survive in a hellish environment to learn how to become Bogarts too. Unless we're going to turn into a cop.
Well,
or we're going to turn into a parole officer.
Let me say this. See, that's the issue I always have with people outside our race trying to cover our history. All the way back to before I was born, they always change our history to fit their narrative. They always make us out to be uneducated, ignorant, dumb, blind, unaware. And the thing is this, when you're coming from law enforcement as it pertains to an active gang member, you're actually rivals. Unless you're a rat, they're actually your rival. So they're not gonna pump a black dude up, a gang member up to be bigger than them. That's why a lot of them became cops or got into law enforcement because they were bullied by gang members in school or they didn't get the girls or the nice leather jackets that the Crips or Bloods had. And so they already grow up not liking you. I mean, there's a history of this. Anybody that grew up with dudes in the community that became cops, that's usually the story. There are
But what I don't understand, I agree with you 100%. But what it's something else that I was resonating on here in my mind is that okay? You say you worked at Folsom, and you ran into Buster Shelton, and you classified him as an East Coast Crip. Buster Shelton has never been an East Coast Crip. Never in his life has Buster Shelton ever been an East Coast Crip. So that's misinformation right there. Another misinformation, you spoke on Tony Stacy. You said he was from Five Dukes. Tony Stacy ain't never been from Five Dukes. Never.
And
So that
didn't come
Tookie
from the hundreds.
Tookie did not come from the hundreds. Tookie moved on 69. Monster Cody lived on 69. I lived on 68. And all of this took place with Took in the 60s,
And
1960s.
right.
Tookie didn't do a lot of time as a juvenile locked up. Tookie went to uh, I guess you could call it one of the job training places they had at the time for at-risk youth. They would send the at-risk youth to the job training place. Took went there for a little while. Then when he went to camp, Rocky for a little while. He spent a little time in LP for a little while. But he was on the street,
But
bits and pieces of the formation. And Took was a founder. Took
Q,
was on ground one of this, creation of the Crips, along with Raymond Washington.
Cutes, I know you got you only got an hour, and I know you're gonna out talk me. So let me just get this in, and then you
Okay.
can take back over. So what I'm saying too is, as a law enforcement, correctional officer, police officer, what have you, a lot of times you get caught up in your job description. And so you're not going to say anything good about a black gang member when you're not from the community and you don't personally have a relationship with these dudes. Like Q said, you didn't ride in the cars with these dudes. You didn't struggle with these dudes. You didn't go to work with these dudes in the morning. You didn't work out with these dudes. You didn't do none of this stuff with these dudes. So you're already going to have a warped mindset of our culture or our upbringing. And so a lot of times you guys get on YouTube and you start reading stuff, maybe from your own research, maybe from police reports and probation reports. And the thing is, when they write those probation reports for people when they go into court, them probation officers don't know us. They don't take time to meet us. They don't know. They stereotype us and they paint us out to be as worse as they can so they can get a conviction and get you to do more time in jail or prison than you should. And so when you guys start reading what this probation officer wrote, you need to understand that probation officer didn't know us and didn't have nothing in favor for us. And then you just repeating the bullshit. You just straight repeating some hatred that the system is set up to put us down and incarcerate us. But go ahead, Cutes.
Yeah, and you know what was really, for effect, you wanted to get some effect out of this, and I'm speaking to the law enforcement guy. You wanted to get some effect, so you plastered those pictures of people who were assaulted, brutally, and you put those pictures up, so everyone could see them, and that shows me that you don't have any class and you don't have any heart, you don't have any compassion because those people, that you plaster their picture up, in their moment of death, the face of death there, they got loved ones. And they don't need to be seeing all that, and their loved ones are seeing that. That's not cool. But you don't care about that either, because that doesn't matter to you. You don't have empathy in your heart. What now? You're not a gang authority, and the guy who did the investigations, he's neither authority either. So if you want to speak on something you could have authority on, you could speak on, the dirty cops that were in Folsom Prison. Remember Mahoney, your coworker, who would rape women and who went out and he bit the bullet. Remember him? And they put him over the gang detail. Remember him? Remember some of the parties you guys would have with some of the women, the COs, and you guys would rape them? Remember some of the sergeants who would get sexual harassment from the COs there? Remember that? Talk about stuff like that. There's enough skeletons in your CO closet that it would make us look like altar boys.
And see,
So
that's my point. That's my point. They're not gonna put down what they're doing. But off subject, real quick, cutes. Can you tell us what is Randall Miles' story?
Randall Miles. Give me a clarification because some parts of that name I remember, and I can't really. I need to get a kickoff with him.
Um, I think if I remember correctly, I think somebody told me he was one of the ones that had started 6 9 East Coast, or is that Rayford, or is that Rayford Miles' brother?
Okay, they talking about Rayford Miles' brother, and they talking about Rayford Miles. Okay, so Rayford Miles, he's one of the founders of ETG, and Randall Miles was well, Rayford had an older brother who was murdered. You know, coming from a concert. And he was in his car, and Darvisher said that he tried to run him over or whatnot, and he shot in the car and killed a young man. And so the other thing I can tell you about him is that he was a nice person. I would see him every day. He lived on 83rd off of between Western and St. Andrews. His mother had a koi pond in the backyard. Uh, Rayford, the younger brother my age, he liked the pit bull dogs. Me and Frog from ETG, we would lift weights, and Smokey Joe would be in the backyard, lifting weights. The older brother, he would come around us, and he was always cool, quiet. He liked to joke around with me, but I was only in, we were only in each other's life, for like a candle. The light came on and then the light went out. But there's a lot of good people, man, from that east side, that helped Raymond start the Crips. And the Crips ain't all good, and they damn sure ain't all bad. And when you don't mention Craig Craddock, then I knew you didn't do your homework, because Craig was with the formation of me when I took over Crenshaw, and that brother would come and look in on me because he knew that it was bigger foes than me, to deal with. He would come and make sure, that I had backup too. That was a good strong brother. And you say you go talk to you had a friend or a cop that wrote a book about Raymond from interviewing his brother. I never met Raymond's brother, but I could hardly see him doing
Cute,
an interview with a cop.
cute. So sorry to cut you off. I think the question posed about uh, telling us a little bit about Rayford's older brother is he was killed by a police sergeant.
Yeah. But I don't
And
know if it was a sergeant
yeah,
but
well,
I
that
know
was
the
that was
circumstances.
that was the investigation, and
Yeah.
their excuse was it was an accident. So he
Oh,
don't talk about stuff like that. He don't talk about how police killed dudes that wasn't doing nothing wrong, wasn't
yeah.
committing an act of a crime.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's what I'm saying. These police ain't gonna do that. Just like we're not gonna pump up a police. Well, every now and then you get an idiot that talks about a good cop, but we're not going to pump up the police because that's not our objective. And like you were saying to me over the phone, dude was very subjective when he was telling his stories. But they always try to put Raymond down. Man, they didn't know Raymond. They didn't write Raymond, correspond with Raymond when he was locked up.
But yet he's gonna try to use that abbreviation. You know, he's gonna make crip the word CRIP an abbreviation, and so he contradicts himself when he talks the abbreviation. Everything he's saying within the abbreviation shows unity. Everything if that abbreviation came about, the Crips were a big gang. So if there were some Crip members who said that abbreviation existed within their time frame, then that abbreviation existed. Didn't exist in my time frame. I wasn't privy of it. I did a lot of time incarcerated. But I tell you what I didn't. What I did do, I spent time in the trenches with these men that you mentioned. And I know that we all had a sense of blackness, and we wasn't hell bent on hate and destroying our community. And the reason we made money the way we made our money is because our communities were deindustrialized. There was no jobs for black men. And the word blood did not come from the brothers that were in Vietnam. The word blood came from after the Watts riot. Well, so we're going to give Watts the credit for starting the word young blood. And it has nothing to do with the Piru blood. And to not even give Baba Louie his credit and saying that he jumped ship, there was no ship for him. Not how could he jump ship? How could a founder jump ship? He hasn't jumped anywhere. He could still stand out on Western in the middle of the Crip set because he never did nothing scandalous. Anytime he had a conflict with a Crip, he would get to serve him head up because that's the way we dealt with our conflicts. And then you want to mention Frog and you want to put him in a box and say he knows a little history and that he's from the Nickersons and this and that. Well, Frog knows a lot of history. You can't just put us in a box, man. And to say that this gang is against that gang. Our conflicts within our sets isn't always concrete. Gang members form bonds from conflict and from settings where they at. Say they incarcerated together. Something jumps off. Another gang member that you thought would never have your back jumps up and have your back. That creates a bond. It don't matter if you were from Hoover or you were from Rolling 60s. So you don't understand that. So to pit these gangs against each other and say it in such a concrete manner is a distortion in itself. Because I've been in the park with all the different gang members at all different times. So to say we don't have a sense of blackness and a sense of black love, you don't know what you're talking about. When I left one of the founders of the Inglewood family in the county jail when he was facing his life sentence, I left him all the money that I had in my pocket because I had wino time and I was going home. And I said, here, brother, I said, you need this. And that's what I give to Jan Brewer. So you don't know what you're talking about, man. You don't know the love. You don't know the respect that we have for each other in the street. And to talk about the brims and not mention, the founder of the brims. You didn't even know who the founder of the brims is.
They said Austin, Texas said he called Frog's homeboy Silly Blood instead of Silky Blood. That was
Yeah,
different.
he just made an idiot out of himself trying to act like he's an authority on this thing. No, you're not an authority on nothing. The only thing you could be authority on if you choose to disclose how dirty you guys were when you worked in Folsom Prison, how you killed inmates, how you fought inmates gladiator style, how you turned your back when another inmate was about to get blasted. Talk about those things. Talk about how you moved inmates to an area where you knew that death was following them close. Talk about that.
Hey,
Talk
I
about all the
thought,
dirty things that the cops did. You don't want to talk about that.
yeah, I already said they're not going to do that. But I thought it was funny. I chuckled when he called Wood Rat Woody Rat.
Yeah, crazy shit.
Yeah.
It's crazy shit.
But again, that's people that's trying to cover our culture that don't even understand our culture. You can't just watch some Mac videos and know the history
And think
because
you a historian.
everybody's not accurate and everybody has different perceptions. And now somebody that's getting these stories and try to repeat them, that's like third or fourth hand information because the information isn't always firsthand. And they just don't understand it. They don't know how to put it together, but they feel like it's their job to report and give the history of black gangs. It's kind of funny to me. Like you was upset, I wasn't upset because he gave me and Skip a few shout outs. He talked about Pookie and other people that have been on the platform. I wasn't upset, but I actually thought it was a clown act, basically. I just thought it was unprofessional and somebody trying to pimp the culture.
Well, he started out with a contrast. Let me explain to you guys about a contrast. He put Bunchy Carter on one side, and he put our founder Raymond Washington on the other side. He said one of these men, had a sense of blackness, basically black pride, the black movement. He said the other guy, basically saying, was hell bent on destroying all that, self destruction, black hate, black this, black that. What he didn't know is that no, uh, he did not run with Bunchy Carter. He grew up in the neighborhood with Bunchy Carter. He seen Bunchy Carter. He spoke to Bunchy Carter, but Bunchy Carter's little brother was a Crip. So Raymond was that powerful to influence Bunchy Carter's brother to become a Crip. So how do you think that Bunchy Carter's brother would become a Crip under Raymond Washington and they not have a sense of blackness? With all of the knowledge, all the book reading taking place up under the Carter household, the Carter roof. So imagine that. What do you think young Bunchy and Raymond would talk about?
Are you asking me that question?
No, I'm putting that out there for thought.
Oh,
I
right.
mean, it's there, It's just like, what do you think me and Hugo Pennell would talk about? What do you think me and say when I be over there with with the brother who got out after serving all that time because you guys said he did something that he didn't do, and he ended up doing a life sentence, and then Johnny Cochran finally freed him, finally got him out. What do you think we would talk about when we would be together? What do you think? What do you think Geronimo Pratt would say to me? I'm a Crip. What do you think we talked about? We got up under the bench press weight together. We didn't have no love and no unity amongst us. Why would he get up under such tremendous weight and allow me to spot it? A Crip, a thug, someone who doesn't have a sense of love for his people. So everything you're saying about Crips is just a distortion and it's a figment of your imagination. And the reason why it's a figment of your imagination is because you're not a historian at all. You're a perpetrator. So if you want to
I,
be a, go ahead, kid.
I just kind of think a lot of people see this as a lane. I think they see this as a way for notoriety. But also, a lot of these guys telling these stories are inserting propaganda. I think this is a situation where dude directly or indirectly was trying to put us in our place and say that their way, their story is the correct story in the right way, and listen to them, not us. And just really like in a low key way, even like when he mispronounced Silky Blood, like putting us down, like everything was a put down. Like you said, keeping us in a box. And what I mean by the box is we blocked in here, but they up here. Like they get to look down on us, and I'm stereotyping the people that cover our culture. And I think that was one of them moments, Cutes, man. And that's really what got me tired and what had me write the magazine when I did that Raymond Washington article and I started covering different neighborhoods throughout LA because we can cover our own history, bro, because we're going to be more careful about how we present things. We're not going to be disrespectful toward each other, and we're not trying to just make us out to be animals because there are successful people that have gangbang. There's some people that made it out the gang early. Even the ones in the gang, we've raised families. Some gang members, and I promise you this, some gang members probably had more kids graduate from college than police officers.
If police officers would just tell the dysfunction of their dysfunction, eating the gun, beating their wives, whooping their children, they some of the most hardest people to get along with. And when they do stuff, they want the DA to give them a break. They don't, oh, my job was so hard. I see everything. Feel sorry for me. I don't want to be treated with the same laws that I treated these criminals with. But yet now I'm a criminal. Come on, man. Be serious. We're all human beings. Cops is no better than the criminals that they locked up. Cop told me once, he said, the only difference between me and you, Gilbert, is that you got busted and I didn't. And I always believed that. I said, I will, officer. Thanks for telling me that.
Hey, you know what's crazy is some of these police officers, they actually be in documentaries. They're actually the go-to man for people that's doing these documentaries. They
Yeah,
go to them. They seek them out
yeah,
because it's a safer way. It's a safer route to go.
yeah,
And you're programmed to think that police are experts.
yeah. And they're not. What police are experts at is fabricating the report. 66% of their reports are falsified, lying in their reports because they want a conviction. So how are you going to bleed them? They criminal too. They're no better than the criminals. They done brought drugs in the community. They didn't shot innocent people. But it's like the news, things are being in the news, then it goes away. And then they repeat it over and over again. But the news, you only think about, the tragedies of the inner city when they put us in the news and they say we did A, B, C, or D. But when they're doing A, B, C, or D, you forget it. You let it go. But yet they still under the same the badge, same thing, same operation, same precinct. But you forget about all the dirt that they did. I remember one time a cop told me, he said, I got out and he came up to this program we had at Donovan, and it was Kairos. And he needed to purge his soul. So he was an ex-police officer and he sat at the table with the inmates, and everybody gets a chance to tell something that hurt them in their life. So I explained what hurt me in my life. Another guy was brave enough to talk about it. So we didn't know this guy was a cop. So he's like 78 years old. And he said, he said, you guys, I'm gonna tell you what hurt me in my life. And I hope you guys don't look at me any differently. And so he got to talking in a low voice. And he said, I used to be a cop. He said, my precinct, we was real racist. One time we had brought a black guy in there and we beat him so bad it was blood on the ceiling. And I just got up from the table and left. I just said, I can't take it. I got up. I just got up and left. I wanted to sit in another group. I don't want to be in a group with him. Even though I was seeking my recovery, I didn't want to sit in the group with him. I couldn't deal with that. So the guy who does these interviews and saying he's an expert, how do you deal with your own conscience? Sure, you did something dirty to an inmate, or you witnessed one of your colleagues doing something harsh to an inmate. You don't got to go far to realize this. I remember I had a friend and he was a trustee, and the police cars would come back and he would clean them. He said, Cutes, there was so much blood in the back seat of that police car, man, where they had beat the guy, and put him back there. The cops had beat the guy to a bloody pulp. And he says, I gotta clean the car. That's my job. And then he would come back in the cells and he would say, I don't want to be a trustee no more. I want to be up here with you guys. I've seen too much.
I remember when I was coming up, you would always hear guys in the neighborhood say the police are the biggest gang in LA, biggest gang in America. And you just thought it was really a comparison or whatever. And then we get older and find out that a lot of those guys from the sheriff's department in LA actually was in a gang. So when they putting down gangs, they don't look at it like they're putting down their coworkers or putting down themselves. They always try to separate themselves like they God or they perfect or they Jesus or they somebody different. But if you're gonna stereotype a gang member, why we can't stereotype a sheriff or LAPD or NYPD or any other PD? And what else was I gonna say? I was gonna also say, like when you're talking from a law enforcement standpoint, correctional officer, LAPD sheriff. Remember, those jobs was filled by Ku Klux Klan before my days. So you already coming from a racist point of view anyway, a racist philosophy anyway. Black
And a
people,
sex, and a
black people.
sexist point of view.
Go ahead.
And a sexist point of view too. They didn't
Oh,
used
that's
to allow
automatic.
they,
That's
they didn't
automatic.
used to allow women to work inside of the prison. In the 60s, I don't believe. I believe they just started getting women in the prisons like in the I think in the maybe the 80s or the mid 70s. They discriminated against women, so their whole thing, man, is corrupt. And they know they corrupt. They got cliques within cliques. And each sergeant, when he moves to another yard, he takes his clique because the dirt that he's doing, the men that he clicked around him could take that and understand that. If he puts a rookie in there with him that can't understand that and take that, then he'll be the one that'll come forth with, hey man, these guys are assaulting inmates. They're going in their cells. They planting stuff in their cells. They they putting inmates in areas where they shouldn't be at. They're going to get assaulted by other inmates. So they really play chess with the inmates because some of the inmates aren't that smart. They don't realize they're being, used as chess pawns.
Right. A lot of times we fall for the banana in the tailpipe. Hey, check this out, man. If Carmelo Anthony gave back to the community today, shout out to Carmelo. Good looking out for that information. I like to look into that, see what Carmelo was doing in the hood today. A lot of people saying much respect, Q. They always tap in to see what you're talking about.
Yeah,
And
that's why I try to keep it serious, because if you take this Crip and blood stuff, and you turn it into a little gang, then you have these other people, who think they professionals and they'll come in and they'll try to make you hate us all. But we the black men that were locked away, for our crimes. We served our time, you know, and we're sorry for the things that we done in our life. We're out here building community. We are the solution to our problem, not them. You know, just to say education is the solution to the gang problem is ignorant. The solution to the gang problem is jobs. The solution to the gang problem is letting black men come back into the black home so the black man can have dignity with the job, where the black man can feel like he has worth. It's easy now to look on the side of a bus, to look on a building poster and see a mother with two kids. The black man has been written out of the home, for decades now. So now it's common. It's not even second guessed anymore. No one stands up, for the black father, the father who tried, or the father who wishes he would have, made a different decision in life. But the black man, he's strong and he endures. He endures a lot. And we're not gonna let some dude that's got a cop history come on and tell our story. Now, if you want to be gullible and naive and go to his channel and listen to his, distortion, then you're free to do that. You got a free will, you can do it. But remember, you're not getting real history.
man, that's why we got brothers like you, Q's. Come on and get some real history.
And to say and to try to write Inglewood out of the formation, the Crips, Inglewood, really? What about Michael Christian? You gonna mention a few of the supporting cast in Inglewood? Inglewood was ground one.
Give us a Michael Christian story and tell us his significance to Crippin.
I'm gonna tell you, uh, shortly after being recruited in the Crips in 1970, Michael Christian and I we were up at St. Andrews Park, and we were giving ourselves some structure. So Michael Christian said, "Cutes, you're gonna be the sergeant of arms." And I said, "Okay, what does that entail?" He says, "You're gonna keep all the Roscoe's." I said, "Oh, that's cool. I like that. All right, I'm the sergeant of arms." So and then Tookie was smiling. He said, "You the sergeant of arms, Cutes. You know what that means, right?" I says, "Yeah, I get to keep all the Roscoe's." "Yeah, but you don't get to use all the Roscoe's." I says, "I wouldn't do that." He says, "All right." So we got that set up. He said, "Now we need a treasurer. Who's going to be the treasurer?" Michael Christian raised his hand. "I'm the treasurer." I said, "What does that entail?" "He gets to keep all the money, but he can't spend the money." I said, "All right, cool." I said, "So when is we gonna do, the first money thing?" "Today, right now." So we all gave money to Michael Christian. And so Michael Christian was the treasurer, I was the sergeant of arms. People would come to me to get shit. They would go to Michael to get stuff. So everything was going good, man. And Mike was real disciplined. So Mike said, "Come on, man, the meeting's over. Let's go have some fun." So we go over by the sand pit. St. Andrews used to have a sand pit with these metal steel rings hanging on a chain. And Mike said, "Hey, Cutes, give me a kickstand boost up into the chain, into the rings." And I said, "Come on." And I popped him up into the rings and he locked himself out. He did a L, a perfect, beautiful L. And then he fell down from the L into an iron cross. And the rings just tightened up and made the prettiest sound I ever heard in my life. And then he locked out in this iron cross. And then he drew himself back up. And he was still in the L. And I was like, damn, this dude is strong. And this was all way before he became, a professional bodybuilder. But man, it was just being around him, and he and Pookie and I, we were best friends. Especially when he came home from the youth authority. We would be together every day. Me and Pookie would get in the fight, and the first thing he would come over to my house early morning. "Let's go get our boy Mike." And when we would go get Mike, and we spent all day with Mike. Mike did not like the fact that Crips were starting to fight each other. I remember he told me that. He said, "I see a lot of stuff getting different out here, Cutes. I noticed a lot of bickering starting to take place." He didn't like that. Yeah, he was a good dude, man. Still a good dude to this day. And he's doing grown man shit. He's married. He's a trainer. He's somebody to be looked up to. Evolve. That's what we do. We evolve. That's what this guy forgot, to say in his narrative, that we evolve into good people. And by the way, before Raymond was murdered, he had evolved too. He was doing great things. That's what the long table was all about. That's what Miss Blue, Mr. X's mom, was all about when she hired Raymond Ecky, #1, and Psycho Michael to come and work for her to talk to the at-risk youth. And we had Bloods, Crips, Van Ness boys, and all the different gangs coming up to that center. Then we had reputables up there that we could listen to and talk to off Lamert, for those of you who are familiar with the area off of Crenshaw. So there are a lot of good, man. A lot of good stuff that
Have
Crips
you,
are doing.
have you spoken to Barefoot Pookie lately?
Yeah, Pookie had reached out to me, I think it was a week or two ago. And he told me he was doing good, and that told me he just had me on his mind, that he wanted to hear my voice. And I said, cool. He told me don't be a stranger.
Mm. Man, I sure wish I could have got that Mr. X interview, man. He called me a couple times after, first before the cancer in his throat cancer,
Yeah,
and we was going to do it. Then he wanted to do his treatments, and then he felt like he wasn't going to make it. So after his treatments, he wanted to do it. And some lady took the phone from him and was like, "You guys need to leave him alone. Let him rest. He don't need to be speaking." And
yeah,
then I I gave him a few days to rest, and maybe 3 days, and then I called him,
Yeah.
and he was like, "Yeah, man, let's do it. Where you want to hook up at?" And then the lady took the phone again and cussed me out. Next thing I know, I heard he passed. Man, that was so cold.
Yeah, that was my best friend. His mother's name was Miss Blue. She used to like Rockhead's uncle, a karate man who was from the Grandies,
Mm.
and Pee Wee liked it, my brother Rusty, and me and X were best friends. There'd be me, X, Spry, RB, because I hung out in the block a lot back then. Big Odie, Spry is Big Odie's big brother. I always thought Spry was a little brother, but he's a big brother. You know, we'd be over there. We'd be at the corner over Melvin Hardy's house. You know, just kicking it, man, just having fun in the hood, messing with Penguin and Ray Ray down on the 7. You know, and that's how the Crips were, man. We would go set visit. We would visit each other's set. You know, but I was most insulted when he said that Baba Louie was a set hopper, and you know what happens to set hopper. Baba Louie ain't never been a set hopper. Baba Louie was original. He was a creator of sets. He didn't have to do no set hop.
Hey, I think that's up for interpretation, Q.
Yeah,
But what I would say is back then it wasn't a bad thing.
nah, I
Once
mean,
Crips and Bloods was established,
yeah,
that was something different. But Baba Louie was pre-Crip, pre-Blood when his situation when he changed name.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So what is the guy talking about?
Right.
No such
Somebody wanted to know if you could explain Mr. X's um, connection from LA to the Grandies.
Oh yeah, I explain it. Okay, so Miss Blue and them they lived in Compton. So when the formation of the Grannies when it had started in Compton, Mr. X was a granny. And then Miss Blue moved on 111th place. So when she moved over there on 111th, she moved in the middle of Odie and them's block with Melvin Hardy and them. So that's a strong influence of Crips right there. So uh Granny Crips would always come over X's house. And then the grannies start playing out because I guess the either that apartment, that street, I think it got demolished or they boarded it up. So start spending more time over there with us. And but I remember Little Cross would come over there, who later became a Pyru. I remember CC would come over there. I met a lot of grannies over X's house. I remember Vamp would come over there. I remember King Neem would come over there. Would I be, these were first generation, CC Crips. That's CC, and X would always tell me about the grannies, because I did a lot of time in camp and juvenile hall, so I missed the opportunity to drive down and click the lights on with Took and them. I missed that opportunity, but I did not miss the Grandy Crips because they live with me in LP. They live with me in Eastlake. They live with me in camp, so I knew all of it. I knew all of them. When I did get out, I would go over Mac Thomas's house. I go over Black Connie's house, but Mac would always be locked up. And I spent time with Mac and YA. I've been with
Hey,
Heron.
hey, Q's the guy that was convicted for killing Mac Thomas. Well, I'm assuming he was convicted. Did he end up doing prison time?
He ended up doing his time in Vacaville because, um, you, he was disfigured.
Wow. Oh, because he got shot during the incident, huh? Man, Q's, you know a lot, man. You know a whole lot. You never been to Vacaville, right?
No,
You been to Solano?
so no. I did all my time in Old Folsom, New Folsom, Tehachapi, Corcoran, San Quentin, uh, Tracy, and Donovan.
Right, Q's. Well, I know you got to go to work, man. Uh,
Yeah, man. But I just want the people to know, man. as long as I'm around, I'm gonna keep you guys, with the truth of these things, man. And I'm not gonna paint myself as Mr. Super nothing, but I am gonna be forthcoming with the truth. I'm not gonna let anyone deceive you. I'm not gonna just come on here and make up some shit. You know, I just want you guys to know, that people that he's talking about, my friends. You know.
2 questions before you go. Was you at Folsom when Rick James was there, and was you locked up when Babyface jumped off the porch?
No, when when Rick James was in Old Folsom, it had turned to a lower level. It was like I believe level 2 or level 1. No, I wasn't there then. I was in Folsom when it was level 4. And when Babyface jumped off the porch, are you talking about our Babyface?
Yeah.
No, why did he have to jump off the porch? I know what dude is alluding to. I just want to
Right.
make sure.
Right.
All I can say about Babyface is that he didn't turn down no fade.
Wait, I wouldn't turn down no fade either if I got Big Rick by my side all the time.
Big Rick definitely wouldn't turn down no fade.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, never.
Or a gunfight, but hey,
Neither one.
So yeah, Babyface might be one of the ones that's really undefeated in the streets. If
Oh
Rick
yeah,
was there
Babyface
every
wouldn't
time.
turn down no. Babyface and his little brother Huey and Rip, they get in that tray and they would move around town.
Cuse, was Texas Syndicate Mexicans in Folsom when you was there?
Yeah, but they were just getting thinned out. But yes, they were there. Yeah.
That's
They were,
deep. That's some history that's not talked about in California enough.
yeah. Well, we're gonna let a Mexican talk about that.
Yeah, because that's their thing, right?
Yeah. I like people to stay in their own lane
Right,
out of respect, convict respect.
right.
I speak on Crip and blood stuff, but mainly Crip stuff. We got good, honorable bloods out there that can speak on blood stuff. And cops, you guys should speak on cop shit.
That's real talk, though, and that's what I'm saying. Everybody should find their lane, represent what they represent, and
Yeah,
quit
stay in
worrying
your
about
own lane.
everybody else.
There's enough rich history and all the messing up that you cops have done to really get us interested in how dirty you guys really can be.
Did
So
you
make
know?
a video about that.
Did you know Big Tex from 111?
Big Tex.
I never heard that name before.
Wait a minute. I think I did know Big Tex from 111. Let me think. That name sure stands out. Oh, we down here in 111 block?
I guess I don't know.
Hey, you guys mentioned 118. I was going to let everybody know that I met a youngster from 118 when I was in the joint named Capone. He RIP now, but Big Capone, that was a good youngster, man.
Mm.
He could hit 500 pounds.
What was your max, Cutes?
Little Bam used to roll me. I could get like maybe 3 wagon wheels and a nickel or something. My strength was mainly in the squats, the deadlift, and arm. Because I would do heavy arms with Munson and Miles, so I could do heavy stand up back arms, and I would do heavy back arms with Flag, his brother named Flag.
What was your best exercise? What was your best exercise to get your knife hand ready?
Uh, 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 Definitely heavy curls.
Cute, you didn't play. You didn't play. Ball. What do you call it?
Oh no,
Handball.
handball.
Yeah,
No. I
never.
didn't. No, the handball. I tried to play handball when I was in the hole, and I slipped on some ice and I slid like shit. I had to slide about maybe 15, 18 feet on ice, and I had to hold my chin into my chest because if I would have fell and my head would have hit the concrete, I would have probably been dead. Yeah, I don't like handball. And plus, handball would break all the arteries or all the little veins in your hand, and it would swell your hand up. Dudes who play handball have severe hand pain. That little ball is so hard. That the little one, that's the man ball. If you can play with that, your hand, you got to have a hard ass hand.
Yeah.
Hand, handball is another exercise that creates flexibility and power within a thrust.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Plus, it's good exercise too.
Yeah, it's great.
We appreciate you for coming on, man. I know you got things to do. You
Well,
take it.
I enjoyed coming on. Sometimes I like to come on and mellow out, but under these circumstances, I had to just come on and let our guests know the truth.
Right. All
So
right, bro.
to all my blood friends and all my Crip friends and anybody else who respects and looks up to gang members, I want all you guys to know that we do better, and all we got to do is strain toward better, and it'll be a better tomorrow. For all you kids who are thinking about getting in a gang, if you ain't in a gang yet, just listen to our stories and maybe you'll reconsider. But the
Yeah.
choice is yours.
All right. All right, bro. Take it easy.
All right, peace.
All right. All right, y'all. Cute's Cash App was posted throughout this live in case you want to look out for the OG. Little gas money or a little lunch money might help. The Gold, what's up, homeboy? How you doing? Haven't heard from you today, which is kind of a surprise. I appreciate you guys for tuning in, man. Appreciate the super chats. We're going to have a slow time on the blue channel, but we're going to remain turned up on the black channel as I go out of state to go to a couple funerals. And eventually, I don't know where, I'm going to celebrate my birthday, but eventually, I take off from baseball season come and when my birthday come, but I'm going to have to bring y'all some type of content for those paying for that blue channel. And shout out to any of those that pick North Carolina or pick Kansas to win it all, because you're still in it. My Villanova and my Duke finally was eliminated in the Final Four. Shout out to UNC and their fans. Shout out to Kansas and their fans. Two historically great basketball franchises that are programs that me and Rockhead didn't pick. My bad. I'm totally embarrassed. I told Rockhead when I gave him my 5 that I should have had Kansas on there. I had time to change that pick and I didn't. I really feel a little stupid right now. This should be a great game. I think the best two teams actually made it. Kansas is a little lengthy. And Remy Martin ain't no joke. UNC is athletic, great coach. I'm glad we got a brother representing our people in the finals. So ball game. If your picks are on that live or nope, they had to be in the live, then you should be getting $100 from Rockhead pretty soon. I had Duke as one of my 5, Trench Baby as well. But I'm glad I didn't give y'all no picks because I really like the two losers. But the reason why I didn't give y'all them picks, because I really felt Kansas was better and UNC was better, and that's why I didn't force that pick on y'all. Y'all take it easy, man. Much love. Thanks for tuning in. I got a story coming up. And unfortunately, I can't get the Mumpy baseball story out until about 2 weeks. So I'm going to put that story together back when I have time and just let y'all have some fun and trip and laugh. You know what I mean? Peace.